Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to URU. So we're doing the first expansion, The Path to Deny. And as it kind of works, there's not really books in this expansion other than these three books. So you could start this DLC, and we had done a lot of it just kind of randomly wandering around. Uh, So we could go to these three new pages, and it's so weird to have a linking book that has multiple locations and multiple pages. That's really not what Myst Islands have been in the past. They've been instead the idea of specifically starting you in a nice little landing pad location. Often it wasn't a place that looked particularly unique or nice, but when you played Myst 1 and you linked back to Myst Island, you were either in the central area or on the docks. And that's where it seemed that the creators of those ages wanted you to always start, so that you would always take in a location. Now the idea with Deny, and I guess I have to get where I want to go, I have to use this vault type mechanism, this secondary transport, which really messes things up. The way you would have fixed this, I imagine, is you would have gotten the key, and then in this vault area, you would have either gotten a way to activate the key to come directly to this area, or you would have gotten a device like this that would have just magically appeared in your Real 2 loading hub. It's ridiculous to jump into a game, potentially, be on the Real 2 island, then have to warp to this secondary hub, to then have to warp to where we want to go. And that ridiculousness just gets expanded more, because what we're supposed to be doing here is we're supposed to be going through this secret room that was locked, and you can't even tell my character is a female at this point, and going through each of these borrow stones. These don't open. So we went through that one, and that opened to a area that then had a bunch of sections of Deny, I think. So then now we'll just go to this next one and we'll see where this takes us. To solve this, like, we've been given absolutely no goal in this DLC. None whatsoever. But to solve this, I think we have to wander through all of these worlds, and we're going to have to figure out if what we just did actually even matters, because we need 5 things, and we've already been here. Interesting. So yeah, we've already been all over these places, unless this is just a carbon copy of the places we've already been. I think for this DLC in particular, one of the things you could have done to fix the wandering around is throw in some sound effects, some whispers of ghosts, or some holograms. Even if it's just kind of the same animation. If you made like 5 animations of the daughter of Atrus kind of showing up in places and pointing you in directions. If you were to remake the game again and have it have the daughter of Atrus be your AI companion. She could also then, just in the real world, in as a real person, wave you in certain directions. Because here's what we've got. We've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 locations. 8 is labeled a library when it felt more like a temple. And we couldn't get too deep down there. We showed up in 7. We've definitely been to 6, which is labeled the palace. And I would say that seems backwards, frankly, because the palace felt more like a library than anything else. But I guess maybe it is from a different mentality that this was the palace because it had books talking about the people. And then 5 is the guild hall. And I think that's what we're not able to connect to. 4 is the museum. That feels like a museum. 3 is labeled as Tukata. And I don't think we were able to get into that area. And then 2 is Tukatal 2. And I don't feel like we were able to get into that area. So some of these fast travel locations may not matter so much. So I should, instead of wander around areas I've been in, I should instead go down like this direction and let's see if we can fast travel. There's, I don't think, a way to jump down this way. I mean, maybe? Let's just see. Let's just see if we end up back teleporting. Yeah. I would say there's a problem with the way things are depicted here also. And perhaps you don't need sounds of ghosts as much as you need just corpses. We have in the previous game seen the skeleton of one king, which how inside of that vault a person would decompose and skeletonize is slightly questionable. I guess over enough time, perhaps enough airborne germs would skeletonize somebody, but typically speaking, I would think you would see something closer to a mummy in what seems to be an airtight vault, in what seems to be a mostly devoid of life universe. It probably doesn't also hurt to try and either put in the combination we put here in either backwards or the right way in Biren, which was the mirror version of this world. I think that's somewhat believable. The way this game plays, in the fact that you have both fingers on both mouse buttons, is still a bit of a weird situation. So I think this will take us somewhere new. They kind of shouldn't have had two things right next to each other. I'm trying to stay away from using the walkthrough. So here we have another deny recovery council. But yeah, the reason why we should be seeing skeletons and corpses a lot is the idea here is that people theoretically are at least at risk of falling to their death all over the place in the night. And that's where all these barriers are for, is to stop people from going into dangerous situations where they could die. That is a concept that has never been in a real issue in the Myst series. In theory, in Riven, I guess some people were fed to animals. Some of the Riven citizens were fed to animals, and certainly other characters, non non-main characters seem to be mortal. But they really expand on this and to justify all the barriers, when really the barriers are just because the game did not get anywhere close to being finished. But the Deny Recovery Council seems to have been amazingly successful, like 100% success ratio as far as stopping people from going wherever they want to in this universe that is just designed around encouraging people to go wherever they want to. And they just seem incredibly efficient. They've got their own logo and such. It's like there feels like there should be a straight up $1 billion company running the whole show. That some Microsoft or Apple or something was secretly a member of the Deny Recovery Council. Now, this was a bit in 2003, so Bill Gates probably would be the only real person there, unless you wanted to throw in like Warren Buffett or just a fake named character would have been fine too, with a fake name corporation. But at least that would explain a lot more. Now, then you have to get into the question of who and why those specific people are called to deny. But it does seem like the people that are called to deny are very much capable people. There's no like wheelchair bound, disabled old grannies, for just a random example, that are getting called to deny. And certainly if they were called to deny, they wouldn't really be able to do much. So here we have a key thing that seems to have filled up my key somewhat. So let's do that again and see if it does anything more. No. So this might be the beginning of calibrating your key. What is this? We've got something beeping. I got something in the air. Interesting. Interesting. So now we've got holographic technology in this world. And let's just, without really understanding what this technology is, it seems like, yeah, this is a start. It's a start of some kind of random Easter egg thing. Interesting. And it doesn't seem like it's in the same place now. Interesting. But does that do too much for us? Let's say no. So we now either have a random holographic Easter egg that is just telling us to go find things, or we kind of messed it up a little bit there, and we'll have to find the next place to try and calibrate this grade 0, which I think is what we're doing. And hopefully we're not just doing a side mini game. It seems like the key now has unlocked something new. The problem I think you're going to run into with this is, I think it is just gonna flicker, and you're not gonna get anything close to a a hint until we've calibrated the grade 0. So we made some progress there. So 1, 2, 3. This one should be 4, and there's only 5 in total. So once we've visited all of these areas, we've then kind of exhausted knowing what we need to do without having to actually read, and almost there's a decent chance that the reading part was listed right there. Like, had I just read that one journal next to the one thing, it probably would have been fine. Meanwhile, this is what they're calling the library. Feel like it flickered a little bit red. So let's go into the library and see. We can't open these doors, right? They don't want to open. We can't jump over. For each little pip, you kind of feels like you should want to look around here and see if these orbs are visible until when you're far away, or if you have to get really close to them. It's probably on a lower level. I guess I could jump down. There's nothing really stopping me. So let's back off on this. Was that over there? No. So how close do you have to be to get it to appear? You have to be fairly close. And either it is filling in these green dots slightly brighter, and I need to find 5 until I can expand it, and then I'll have to find potentially another 10 on top of that, or there's only 4 I need to find in total. Each one of these do feel like they are waypoints, points in a 3D weird. I don't even if you really would call all the different ages and things. They have to, I suppose. Yeah, you just hit an invisible wall, so you can't jump further and jump all the way down. Like, in theory, you would need some set points. The Stargate series kind of did a decent idea in which they explained how the Stargates only worked after they adjusted their software for the drift of the universe. So in the TV series in particular, they couldn't go to any other planets until they figured out that the whole system had fallen out of calibration just because the universe expanded. So they needed to adjust and have some set points. I think that's pretty much what they're implying here, is that however these ages work, they have changed in some way, and so the grade 0 needs to be recalibrated. It could also be something as simple as the system was rebooted and it needs to be calibrated because of that. You will, however, if you were just going to play this game legitimately, I think you're going to jump around a lot of places. Like several hours. No exaggeration. Anyone who legitimately tried to play this would probably see at least 3 hours of wandering around trying to find all of this. And I don't know how you integrate this expansion really and improve on it in any way with the main game, because it really isn't expanding the main game at all. It's supplemental in different areas, so it just kind of doesn't work. And I suppose if you just made the assumption that each location on the map is a checkpoint, and that you can get multiple checkpoints by going to different locations, maybe then you could kind of convince yourself that it's worth your time to run around and try and calibrate. But once you calibrate, also you're still not out of, here we go, yeah, you're still not out of the you're not done with the game. That's what I'm trying to say. Like there's once you calibrate, there's some bigger puzzle to go to different places. It seems like you click on these particularly far also. So, yeah. There's only one more. So I do feel like what's going on here is probably a case of there's a whole bunch of these. I don't think they're randomized in their placement, though. I think there's probably close to 30 or more of these points that are just hard-coded into places, and you can just run around and find the first 5, and then we'll probably have to go back to that one area, and after that calibration we'll start to get something more. See, I have 5 now, and they are lit up more. So let's run around and see what happens if we get 6. Now, it would not really make a lot of sense to if these were like energy pellets and we ran into some kind of doors that unlocked based on how many energy pellets you have. Because while I could understand the creators of this game wanting to try and make this an online game that could play forever, it gets incredibly repetitive and boring if you're having to re-earn the same energy pellets over and over again. Yeah, and this is a solid image right now, so I don't think I can. Yeah, I don't think I can find any more. I don't think it's going to look for any more. So yeah, that saves us a little bit of time and a little bit of cheating. And then we have to go back to the hub world. And it definitely feels like if you just took the expansion out and made it its own separate game and didn't have the Real 2 Island, it would make a lot more sense for this hub world to exist, this nexus. that's not how they did it. So really, this should have just been a building that you could walk into from Real 2 to teleport out. Just a new building that appeared once you had the key. Seems like they were unwilling to change the setup of the Real 2 island for this DLC. And this Path to Deny DLC is supposed to be kind of like a prequel, but really isn't. It's maybe telling you prequel knowledge and prequel information of what's going on, but it's still very much feels like it's being played after I played the main game. I guess you could have tried. So let's see if this does something. Yeah. So now we have to calibrate it a lot more. And, well, before we click this, let's just walk around here and see if there's one in this area. My only thought is that possibly, just possibly, they now want us to go a little bit further and a little bit deeper and not just in the main city. Let's see. We have now something new. Where is it? We have a palace alcove, concert hall foyer, library courtyard. What is this? Reservo. See, I'm still like missing a place. That apparently just unlocked something new for us. Yeah, we now have been given access. And see what I mean about how these Myst linking books in the past have always had just a starting point that they wanted you to see, not a random. Let's go ahead and hit this. Not just like random places or multiple places. Over here we have a linking book that looks like it takes us back to the Nexus, and all of this technology definitely feels like it is very much not the Deny Recovery Council's technology by any means. Here we've got symbols on the ground with like a world map. So I think that's one, and now it's going to be red instead of green. I think this is the general idea. And there was always the hint that the linking books, at least to look into the different ages, used some kind of crystal technology. And to make the linking books, they started off with some kind of crystal technology. So this is the grade 0, somehow making a 0 point on a graph in multiple universes. Can't jump in the water. Interesting. So with the 3 numbers, once it's calibrated, one theoretically would be able to tell 3 degrees of your location, sort of. And apparently my key has to be fully authorized, and it seems like it isn't. This is an awkwardly designed building. And so this kind of also implies that the entirety of all of URU is still considered a single universe as far as how the computer deals with it, that you simply will not be able to. Interesting. There's the other side of that. Almost feels like you'd need two people to open those doors, and that won't happen. So yeah, the degree totally makes sense that each one of these ribbon numbers is basically the equivalent of a 360 degree, and then the distance from the grade 0 totally makes sense. That tells you just how far as the crow flies from this direction. And then that third symbol may be an up and down reference, just how high and how far. But how does any of that make any sense when you're talking about being in a completely different age? It kind of doesn't, but it also kind of implies that all the ages are just kind of these magical subsections of one universe, for lack of a better descriptor. And the Deny Recovery Council has been here. So that got us to one new place, but don't think for a second that that means we're going to unlock another 20 locations. And I can almost guarantee that Real 2 as an island is not going to be considered one of the locations. It's just not going to happen. See, I guess I could go to the ferry terminal and we could check it out just to satisfy a small bit of curiosity, because the ferry terminal I think is in Deny, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's some calibration points here. I also wouldn't be surprised if there aren't, and we'll see if anything changes. Like, these big empty areas all of a sudden make a lot more sense when there's hidden things in them, but it's kind of a justification after the fact. These big empty areas existed first, and then the DLC came. So if you just played URU, you would totally be justified in complaining that all of the worlds are just completely empty sections. And there's some confusingness, certainly, with the walkthrough and how this all goes, unless what I'm doing right now doesn't matter at all, because the walkthrough is definitely not that long, so I don't know how you explain away a running around and collecting all of these calibration points in just a couple sentences. I mean, I guess you could say there's going to be a bunch of calibration points you need to run to every place and see if you can click on all of them. There's too many too close together for a game like this and for what they're trying to achieve. If this was closer to like a Mario game for little kids and you were trying to breadcrumb and have like coins in Mario games nowadays are basically just breadcrumbs telling you where to go, that would make sense, but that's not their goal in this case. And it seems like, yeah, this got moved out of the way. Interesting. So these things do just keep moving, which almost makes it feel like that there are humans wandering around in their own instances of this world, and you can't see them and they can't see you, but everybody is affecting the same thing. Yeah. Nothing really stopping me now to get up here, and I'm fairly certain there was something stopping me to get up here before. It's weird to have these changes. And what it should be is that it should be the creatures that we saw, the Borrow, or yeah, I think that's what they're called, the Lesser as they were referred to as. They should be showing up, they should be moving things out of the way for you. Then you know who to thank, at least. Even if they were acting particularly animalistic and somewhat scary, which they really aren't when you finally do see them in the 5th game. I swear this path before just led to a death fall. Interesting. Walking through here still doesn't seem like it does anything for you. Still feels like you should be able to get through this whole section. It looks like there might be a book over there. I guess there isn't. So you're just kind of wandering around looking for a red dot. And if you can get anywhere close to a red dot, you can click on it. Well, with the exception of Bevan, it does seem like you're going to wander around this area. And this must be lower. Is there a way to get lower? Is there a reason to... Is there a reason to try and jump down there? I guess not. This is compounded as a puzzle element, though. And the blinking as an indicator is not as good as I think I would like it to be. Because I guess what we can do fairly easily is clean out points to the point where it blinks extremely, extremely slowly to tell us that you're just like nowhere close. Ideally, you would be, all these things would be fairly close to each other. And then this point, I think in particular, has not had a thing, even though it seems kind of fairly obvious it should have a thing. So there's something down here. Just like right below us. But I don't know how I could even see below me, let alone figure out how to get there. it also feels like these barriers should clear out more than just a little bit, because it's still fairly easy to make the false assumption that there is a something blocking you when there really isn't. Just do a full circle in this room just to make sure. Some of these are obviously more in the hidden dark areas than the big bright shiny areas that would catch people's attention. That's not bad design, particularly when they're trying really hard to make you see every element of the game and see every part of this world multiple times over. But I think we are kind of approaching as much as we can do. There are either sections that I can't access, or there are simply other things to collect that aren't in these areas. I mean, obviously there is something in these areas. Did I actually knock a cone in the water? No. You still can't jump in the water. You're getting closer, but it has to make the binging sound before you can even hear it. So it seems fairly possible that you could walk right by one of these and not be close enough to trigger. And you kind of just have to ignore it completely until you see a red. Can I push this off? Alright, that was mildly entertaining. And so while you're having this experience, this lonely experience, it's very far from being an adventurer like Indiana Jones, and much closer to being a real archaeologist, of which there's not too many famous ones I could name, or any famous ones I could name, because they don't do exciting, fun things like Indiana Jones does. And it's pretty much what we're finding here, is that it's not particularly entertaining. Maybe you would fall closer to the category of a sociologist because you're studying a society instead of looking for artifacts. But no, I think archaeologist probably would be a better descriptor. And yeah, I think we are at the point where there's, like, we've just gone in circles. It makes it very questionable that there are any more to collect in this section. I suspect all the rest are in the original worlds, and if that's the case, I don't know if I really want to run around the original worlds that much. That there's a problem with that idea. Let's see. Let's go back to Real 2. Well, we're here. So, if there are any in the cleft, that'd be a little crazy. If we go to this area, then we could run around the first section fairly easily, and then I guess fast travel to the second section so we don't have to do the jump, so that's not a big deal. If we go to this area, we can pretty much run around the entire world fairly easily because of the 2 teleports. If we go through this area, it would be a straight run through everything, and that would be fairly annoying. And if we ran around this area, it would be a straight run through everything, and that would be fairly annoying. So if they are also in these points, that's gonna kind of suck. Meanwhile, I'm gonna turn on this and run around Real 2 and see if somehow there would be a calibration point on Real 2 Island. I think the answer is no, because the whole idea of these Real 2 Islands in particular is that they are supposed to be unique books that the daughter of Atrus created only for you, and kind of not connected to the rest of the world. So yeah, even though we have the blinking there, I say that's not likely to be a place where we'll find any. So this would take us... We do have several points that we could just fast travel to each of these, and I suspect fast traveling to each of these probably is something we need to do, because, well, I bet all the calibration points are connected to those borrow stone locations. And look, it's even blinking the key device. So if you hadn't been here and just seen all of this... Was this a brown lunch? So there's now like reason to be here where there totally wasn't reason. Also, I believe that just teleported us way further away. Let's see. What this doesn't point you to, though, is the grade 0. It points you to that central location. So we are just in the place. We're just on top of the building. So 2 collectibles in this area. We'll give it a run around just to make sure we know what we're doing and that we've got everything here. And I don't even think that there's a linking book out of this area. I think you found the borrow stone that got you here, and who knows how these people got here originally. Either they used the borrow stones or they used the just use ladders and other forms of movement, which are completely missing in this game. Like, totally. There's no vehicles. You get into a mechanism and transport yourself somewhere, but unlike like Riven, at least Riven had a vehicle, and Myst also had a vehicle too at the very end. There in the sound puzzle, there's just absolutely none of that, and I imagine that was a concept design that they had to just admit to themselves they were going to have to live with, because I suspect they just didn't want vehicles running over other people in the online stuff. You can totally feel how this game was made worse based on that original premise of it being online. If this was always going to be a single player experience, you would have had a much more open palette, open canvas, as it were. Well, it doesn't seem like this has a calibration thing in it. And I can kind of see why you wouldn't want to do that. I bet there might be one later on. Or this section unlocks. I kind of even know where this is now, because we had seen two doors on one of the side streets that look like this, and I bet that's exactly what this building is. Yeah, so unless this is right in the middle, we're good for that. So back to Real 2. Yeah. It's really hard to tell whether the borrow stones existed in the numbers that they did, or if they existed at all when you originally played URU. I didn't originally play URU. I definitely played the complete collection the first time. Because of that, like, sure, you've got this experience where you've ended up in a bunch of places that had nothing in them until you got to this point, but you already had done enough work to help yourself, and kind of clearly there are more things, because we are running into more places that don't have anything on them right now. I don't know why you would need to calibrate yourself 3 times, other than just for accuracy, sake of accuracy situation. But apparently the Great Zero does need to be calibrated 3 times. So we've got to get all the red dots first. But as it's set, it feels like I'm find 1 or 2 more and then we're done. Because it does seem like it is jumping up a lot higher. Or it did jump up really high at one point. And maybe there's an order to all of this, but if there is some kind of order to this, it doesn't seem like it is completely linear. So we might have to go through this one book a second time, just in a row. But I'm not even sure if that's really the case. And how much time do we have left? Yeah, we've got about 6 minutes. So I think we're going to get this done. And see, here's the place with the death ball. So, ding, ding, ding. I don't think I should jump down here. Let's kind of walk over here. So yeah, that area where they were doing the research, I think, is right on top of that building. Or maybe on top of that building, but I don't think so. Through a wall, basically. So, do I want to run around here a second time? I don't think that's effective. So, let's go back to Real 2. Yeah. Unless the last couple of these are in Bevan. Seems like we'll get them all here. Like each one of these little shortcuts seems to put you relatively close to a calibration point. And here we can even take some pictures while we're at it. Nice little pictures on the wall. Not even really trying too hard. Like, because you don't really want the screenshots to make like your desktop or anything like this. You really just want it as a... Oh, wait a minute. What went on there? Why is this all gold? It's all gold now. You get in this area, and then it changes. As if there's something broken in the programming when you enter right about that area. I don't know if that's supposed to be a secret or if that's just a glitch. I would kind of suspect it's a glitch. Probably something to do with like the foggy, cloudy skybox in that area. And I guess this just is the office or one of the main offices of one of the main guys in charge of the Deny Recovery Council. I mean, I guess he had to have an office somewhere, and sticking it inside the more natural world makes about as much sense as sticking it anywhere else. If you were going to go with the concept of a Bill Gates style character, it might make a lot more sense to have a office in a linking book that literally takes you back to Earth, instead of somewhere else. See, I don't know if you ever even get into this area. So there's not a calibration point here, even though this still probably is in the same world. And this takes you back to that office, which I don't think is really a worthwhile place to link to. So let's go back to the Spies Real 2 island. We'll check it out the second time. We'll run around here and see if there's calibration. I'm still mad that there's a tree he's got that grows, and apparently mine is just glitched and won't ever grow. And then his little area, this little mountain, seems to have like a cave there where mine is damaged. But yeah, there's nothing here. Yeah, not really surprised on that one that there isn't a calibration point on this Real 2 island, although there probably should be, so maybe we'll run into one later in the third calibration, as it asks you to go to weirder and weirder locations. Okay, well that kills all of those locations, So then you would have Bevan, which seemingly is not in the same age by the side of the book. And let's see. We might as well just have this enabled, even just in case. You almost certainly would think that there would be a calibration point in this big room in either this city or its reflection. Yep, we've got a blinking red dot. So somewhere around here is a calibration point. This is the door that we haven't opened, and I think we might be able to open. I wouldn't be surprised if there's not really anything in it. Seems like we need two more calibration points. We'll wander around here and see if there's another one in this area. I believe there's a fast travel point, a borrow stone that takes you on top. Almost certainly there is something up there at some point. We'll run into this classroom. Let's see if there's anything new there. Let's see. Okay, so we're here. It probably wouldn't hurt for me to look at the walkthrough and see if there's a code to put in here. So let me see. Blah 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 blah. Nope, it's not mentioned here. So Come on, come on, come on, come on. Okay. So I'm going to, with all these lit up, and hopefully that's not going to affect anything, I'm going to put in the code backwards that we put in the other area and see if this unlocks the door. So that would be orange, blue, then orange, orange, green, then orange, blue, and then orange, blue. So, in theory, that should have unlocked this door, but it didn't. So I don't know if that's because you didn't start with everything off or what. The only thing we could do is then put in the code this way. So blue, and then orange, then blue, then orange, then orange. Nope, that was wrong. Alright, well, let's turn that off, and then let's walk away for a second and hope that that resets it. So if multiple people were playing with this at the same time, how in the world do you stop trolls from just running up and pressing the button while you're trying to put in the code on an online game? There's just no way. If people want to be a troll, they're going to be a troll, and unless every realm is just instanced. This was supposed to be green, orange, orange. And then if everything was instanced, then the people couldn't interact. There's basically no way of stopping that. So blue, and then orange, it is also very believable that the code here is just completely different, and they just never programmed it to work. It's also possible that you just have to start with everything off, which is another thing. I may have actually put in the code wrong too the first time when I put it in reverse, because it certainly is not, yeah, it's not easy to read. So I'll try it one more time and see if we can do this. I may have skipped up a line. Reading this on a cell phone, the word wrap is particularly short with just like 5 words. So should have been orange, blue, then it should have been orange, orange, green, there should be orange, blue, it should be orange, blue. So, yeah. I got it right that time, and it still didn't work. So I just don't think it's the same code, or this door doesn't ever open. Both are very believable. Very, very believable. And yeah, you get again to this point, this weird point where if you didn't know that you were supposed to be wandering around looking for calibration points, you have no idea what you're doing for this DLC. I could see people easily purchasing the first bit of expansion, and unless there was some bit of text in purchasing it, because I imagine you would have bought it as a physical disc instead of downloading it, which that is a whole nother point of the problem with URU, is that in 2003 your internet connection just would not have been good enough to be playing an online game like this. it's too ambitious. Even though it basically has nothing in it. Um, but yeah, unless you had something that told you that this is, you're supposed to be looking for calibrating the Great Zero, and you're supposed to be looking for these points, and you basically would have needed a screenshot of what these points even look like. Yeah, you just don't have a chance of even starting this puzzle. It feels like what should have happened, instead of you landing on Bevan with this expansion and having a linking book that takes you to Bevan, you should have probably been in the Great Chamber, and then the Great Chamber in the Kirill area, where they talk about the Great Zero and all of that. Let's see. Are we full? No, we're still missing. Still missing one. So. Yeah. Yeah. Bevan as a area should have been what Kirill was, in a sense. Or you just start you at Bevan, and Bevan should be the place where you hear the Human Deny Recovery Council person talking about the Great Zero. And then from Kirill or Bevan, whichever one you start in, there should be a direct pathway, an easy to understand pathway, of where the key calibration is, the calibration machine. Because without that one element, having to go through finding the spy room, solving the whole puzzle of the spy room, activating that color puzzle to then unlock this chamber, like, canonically, storyline wise, it makes sense that they would be taking all the Bara stones and locking you out, but it totally feels like you could have spent 10 plus hours playing this game before you even found a way to open this chamber, and then found from this chamber this specific Bara stone that takes you to this specific area, when this specific area very easily could have been the first place that you just even started the game. Just give the key right now, through this device instead of the other device, and, well, interesting. Do that twice, and doesn't seem like that did anything of importance. Yeah, the whole gameplay design is messed up with the key system. You find the key in the first world that you go to. It acts as kind of a pointless, useless screenshot device that really doesn't do anything else, and it's not until you start doing the DLC that you start being able to register more locations with the Nexus and the key, and you start to possibly find enough locations to start to calibrate the Great Zero, which I'm not sure if we really have calibrated the Great Zero now or what. Because it doesn't strike me like there are any more locations. And yet, we kind of know that there are more locations, don't we? Don't we have to make that assumption that we haven't calibrated it? Because if we had calibrated it, why is everything still at 0, 0, 0? We do have enough to open this door. So these doors may not open at all. We do see the path of the shell up there, which this is not a symbol we have seen at all as far as this DLC, and it's not even the symbol for this DLC. So unless there's some way you're supposed to magically get up onto this screen, I don't think that that's anything we need to take any concern of right now. I think it's probably was added later on with the second bit of DLC. And it feels like after doing all that work, we should be rewarded with either a cutscene or a nice little puzzle. Is that to grade 0? Then what were all the crystals? Interesting. I'd like to have some explanation, really, of how all the crystals and everything work. Let's see. Seems like there's a button here. Okay. So, alright. What are we supposed to do here? Like, we've got one here that says 74. It says 61,131, which, how could you have that unless you're talking like fractions upon fractions of degrees? There should really only be 360 degrees. Can we hit F5 and take a screenshot? No. And can we drag this? Seemingly not. So I think there probably is a hint in that number being so big. That's pretty much all that the hint is, though. You put your hand and your key in here whenever you click on the button. So these are supposed to be like computer screens. But then when you see this number, it's not particularly big either, or particularly small. This one is -77, so maybe there's supposed to be a hint with that. Again, you can't take screenshots. Let's see if we could even do something basic, like write in the journal while seeing the numbers, because that's gonna be a hassle for sure. If you see, can we pull up the journal? No. Interesting. Well, we did activate something. Does that list change anything though? No. Now the game won't let me exit out of this area. And typing in numbers isn't going to do anything. Hitting F2 is not going to do anything. I'm just like stuck. You shouldn't be stuck. S is not doing anything. WASD is not doing anything. I think the game is locked up. Like we're not getting the menu. Not getting anything like this. F3 is not going to do anything. F1, F2, F4. I mean, I could hit Alt F4, F5 is not doing anything. I think the general idea here is that I was supposed to activate each of these as individual points, and then I was supposed to run to these specific spots that I think are fairly far away, but there is also some differences here. Clearly being negative 70, let's just call them feet downward, is not too odd, and 1001 feet away from the Great Zero is not too odd, but being 660,000 feet in a certain direction away from the Great Zero doesn't really make sense. It also doesn't make sense to be 60,000 degrees. It almost feels like a spiral concept for a location might make more sense too. Instead of having a degree, you could probably reduce the two numbers into one number if you had just a spiral where 0 started somewhere, it went north, and then spiraled in a clockwise or counterclockwise motion. But otherwise, yeah. I think this is where we've got to end the game, and I'm going to just have to crash out because, yeah, there's nothing to do. Like, I'll hit the arrow keys just in case there was something to that. But, yeah, there's nothing to do with the left click, nothing to do with the right click. Middle mouse button never has been doing anything anyways. It certainly is indicating that it thinks I should be able to exit out of it, and it would be very weird for a Myst puzzle to not let us exit out of it. And yeah, this game has been buggy in the past, so I just have to assume this is locked up. Well, good news is we've gone an hour, so this is a good point to end. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.